Alright guys, welcome back. We're on the Nightster again. I want to get an air-fuel ratio gauge on here. I know I said that before on the other video. So if you watch that one, I think I found how I'm going to do it. As you see, I already got the gauge off and I mounted over here. We'll make a plate that goes under this whole gauge and it'll mount down, and then it'll also hold that fucking gauge as well. Alright, so here's the gauges. And I'm going to have it kind of mounted like that. So that's going to mount through there, and then it's mounting on the screws. It'll be flush on down at the bottom, so we'll probably sit back a little bit, maybe roughly like that, as far as the depth-wise goes. It'll be over here. So when I look down to the gauges, that's how it's going to look. Alright, so here's the piece I got. It'll be this way around, so that's why it's backwards, but it'll be sitting on it like this. No scratch, you're not going to see any of this. I'm going to try to make this as smooth as I can around it, so you're probably only going to see a little bit here. Did that for strength, as you can see how it's going to sit. So it'll be like that. I'm basically making all this out of hand. Chose to use this stuff. Again, like I made a splitter and everything on the Mustang. Plastic in the middle and aluminum on the outside. That stuff is really stiff. As you can see, doing the whole board. I mean, pretty stiff. Yeah, stuff's probably 1/8 or 3/16 of an inch. About 3/16, even quarter ABS. I mean, even this size was pretty flexible. So I didn't want that thing flopping around, sitting out there. I wanted it pretty sturdy, so that's why I got this. And this stuff's light, probably lighter, just as light, if not lighter than the ABS. Good stuff to work with if you can get your hands on it. I don't know the technical name or what it's actually called. They make signs and shit out of it. That's why it's colored on one side. Got this shit to protect it with black. Got all kinds of colors, but we'll go ahead and continue shaping this thing a little bit. Try to get the edges. I want it to fit pretty smooth as I can around there, so it looks real nice sitting up on top. You're gonna see it, so we'll get to it. Alright, so there we have that. I think I might try to round that off a little more. It looks a little weird right there. Other than that, I'm gonna test fit this thing, drill some holes, see how it all lines up, if I gotta shave any more spots and stuff anyway. This is pretty much it. That's what that's gonna look like. Everything's gonna sit on there. That's gonna be mounted to the bike. Alright, I've got it mocked up, molded in. They're not too bad. I need to paint it all black. Pretty close to the edges around there. That corner's pretty tight there. It is what it is. Nonetheless, it's pretty decent around. I don't hate it. Yeah, they're pretty good sitting on top right there. You know, here like this, so get an idea. We're just gonna, handlebars kind of tilted, but according to the tank, it'll be on there like that. That's that. Paint this thing up. Obviously try to satin black or whatever and mount it on there and see what happens. Alright, so the gauges are mounted as we went over before. That gauge pot is really, you can mount any generic 2 and a 16th gauge to it. Aftermarket you wanted to, if you wanted vacuum, boost, water temperature, oil pressure, whatever the fuck you wanted to add to it, voltage, who knows what you're trying to look at. All fine and dandy there. Mount whatever you want to it, fucking absolutely anything. But nonetheless, we'll get to the O2 part of this air fuel part, and I'll switch the camera here. So I mounted the O2 right in here. Sorry the welds aren't the best I've had. We moved into a new shop, still working on power, so we don't have our 220 up. And half the power in there sucks. It's a long story nonetheless. Bung is welded in here. Enough room for the O2 to sit right up in this pocket here. So I'm going to bring this wire around the back side, tie it up with these wires here. Be on the back there. I did have to take this main pipe off to do it all. Welding in there would be a pain in the ass, plus I don't want to get splatter all over the bike. So that's where that's going to be. You got a 10mm nut. Take this off. This thing's a pain in the ass. It is not very flexible. You have to fight this thing a little bit, take the nut basically all the way off, and then you got to pull it apart and wiggle it off of this, they call it a V-band here. It's kind of a V-band, but it's also kind of more of a ball and socket said, it has an extension. That's what this bump is here. There's an extension on it. So I like the idea. It seals up nice and tight. The tighter you put this, the tighter it's going to seal. You have two 13s, one here, one from the other side. I pulled this off. This whole stud came out, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. Obviously, you just have a lot less thread if that came off the nut. So if you wanted to break that loose to get, I'm assuming there's some kind of crimp or whatever nut on there to get it off of the threads, not very far. It's kind of tight working in here, obviously, as you see. I did taking out the two bolts here, the two their Torx bolts. And you don't have a whole lot of room, but you can pull it a little way, somewhat. It does have two bolts down here that go straight up, so I wouldn't pull too hard on it, but it does give you just a little bit more to get your hand in there and work it. I haven't got to the other one yet, but this one you can use a 13 short socket with a swivel and an extension. You can get mostly back onto it, maybe until it gets tight, and then just tighten it down with without the fucking swivel and all that shit on there. This one was a lot easier. The other one's a little more complicated because it's kind of facing towards the right side of the bike, and then you got to get around the fan and all that shit. That's where the swivel ratchet really came in handy. You'll probably want one of these, or if you have short sockets. I do have a stubby 13. I'm going to try to put it back on with there. Alright, so an update. The bottom of the radiator is not bolts, it's just rubber plugs that center are located, so you can pull that up. I believe the left side is a little bit hard to pry because of the wiring and shit. The fan and everything's right there. Pull that up, move it out of the way. You can get in here a little bit easier, way easier actually. As you can see, I fit my whole hand in here now. I can get a deep 13 in there, no problem, on both sides. So the radiator bolt nut bolts light is 30, T30, not T27. It's T30. This is the AEM gauge. It is just ignition and ground. So I don't use the high beam. I live in a fairly larger city, so I went ahead and found the high beam wire, which was the blue and white wire. It comes out of here. Blue and white is the high beam, runs down to this. I found the harness. It runs right in behind this. It's right there. Pull that out, cut it a bit, then I just cut the high beam wire, so now it just runs off the high beam switch. So I can turn it on and off by that. Just leave the high beams on, it'll come on if I turn ignition on. So right behind there, I leave some extra wire. So I got some wire tied up in there, but didn't need to go down to the battery. There is two bolts that go right there. They look like they have pretty good ground, so I just used one of those as my ground. So basically I had to go right there, from there to there. So this cable right here, just tie it up with all your fucking other your clutch cable right here. It's coming down. This is the other one. I tied it with the clutch cable as well. It runs down there. All the extra wires sitting there for the O2. I didn't end up going through there because there was no good way to get it in through there without pulling a whole bunch of shit apart. So I ran it over there, across the seat, under the little flap there. You pull out the two little Phillips. It's basically just Christmas trees, but they got Phillips in them. So you run that. If you pop this off, you can see the O2 is connected in there. It just runs right up in here, does a little loop. Got the connector right there, so if I need to change it, really pop that off, pull the O2 sensor out, cut a couple zip ties, and that's that. Other than that, the exhaust is back together, tight. I don't know what else. It was a pretty simple, straightforward install. A lot easier than I expected. I don't have a good way to hold the camera right now, but we'll go ahead and start it up and check it out. It seems like it runs pretty well where it should. Around the 14s at idle.